Before I get started today, I want to take a second to give you guys some praise for your enthusiasm. At the end of the last video, I took a comment-based vote to hear what you guys wanted to see next. With the YouTube analytics, I can actually see how many of you drop off before the end of the video, so I wasn't expecting to get many votes at all. And Fight Night was also pretty much guaranteed to be lower key, so that had me thinking I probably wouldn't get any votes. But you guys pulled through and kept it exciting. Really blew my expectations out of the water. Today, we're going to take a look at the first EA Skate. Huge thank you to everybody who suggested this, and I've been waiting for a while, and thank you for sticking around. Let's get started. Skate, developed by EA Black Box in 2007, is a simulation-focused skateboarding game that uniquely introduced a completely new control scheme. You might have noticed that I said simulation-focused instead of just calling it a simulation, and that's because there is some tech fantasy inspiration mixed in here intentionally. Skate was designed to be as close to a simulation as it could be without becoming extremely boring. Many of the creative decisions were made in order to keep the game fun and entertaining and also a video game while maintaining the illusion of realism. Among the brilliant team of people who made this game are recognizable names like Kate Rayner, Bob Siliker, Need for Speed legend Andrew Brownsword, and many more, but one name that stands out particularly is Scott Blackwood. Blackwood is another Need for Speed series legend, as well as a veteran of the 007 series, but his most interesting credits by far are his work on Beetle Adventure Racing. He was the producer, designer, and one of 3 music composers for that game. It's always a massive win when you get a producer who knows what a good and fun game looks like. Even better when the producer has served in a lead design or lead technical position of some kind. The story here follows the custom skater and the cameraman throughout the fictional city of San Vanalona. We meet the custom skater first after what is the most ridiculous introduction video I've ever seen in a video game. EA finally uses real-world footage of something after many years of not doing that. And the real-world footage is a lot of sketch comedy, the toppest of top keks. After getting out of the hospital, the custom skater and the cameraman take to the streets of San Van to establish themselves. This game has you traveling between a ton of different places, completing a wide variety of goals, all made to mimic the ideas of real-world skateboarding. There are games of skate, video and picture spots, competitions, jams, specific lines, individual score spots, and death races. As you attract the attention of more pros, you'll be offered more pro challenges, contests, and sponsors. Sometimes completing these challenges will open a new area, or sometimes they'll unlock more challenges, but there's never really a short supply of stuff to do. Unfortunately, that stuff to do is marred by some of the weirdest problems. Best trick events usually have every skater go out simultaneously, so you as the player are constantly at risk of body slamming an NPC. Putting that aside, you're always at the whim of the RNG. You never know when an NPC will just drop a random high score banger out of nowhere or will hit an insane trick in a game of skate. This game has absolutely no sense of difficulty balancing. You'll go from an easy photo gap to jumping through a tiny hole using the worst terrain imaginable. It really doesn't feel well tested. Putting that aside, the gameplay is really good. It's not very common to have a new control scheme come along that completely changes the way we look at how games can be made. Skate is pretty revolutionary in that way. You can kick off normal or Mongo, using either cross or square, and the game makes a point to tell you that 3 kicks is usually just enough to get things going. Pulling the right analog stick down and then flicking it upward will do an ollie, and doing the same thing in reverse will do an ollie. You can flick and rotate the stick in a wide variety of different ways to perform a variety of different tricks, and it's surprisingly intuitive. Some tricks take super simple movements like down to diagonal, and others take more advanced inputs like 1/8 rotation to horizontal diagonal flick. Trying to remember what all of these gestures do is sort of like learning a new hand-based language. You'll mispronounce a lot of it at first, but gradually you'll become more fluent as you put more time in. Beyond the gesture flips, you can perform grabs by using the left or right trigger, and you can tweak and modify those grabs using a variety of analog stick directions. You can manual by holding up or down on the stick while on the flat, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say the manual system is completely broken. Not only can you literally hold it forever, but you can also do this other really neat thing called a revert pop glitch. Essentially, all you have to do is start a manual, do a revert, and pop out with a 360 hard flip or something. If your timing is just right, you'll launch into the air with the height of 2 ollies. Skate 1 has a lot of regular glitches like vertex bounces and the occasional broken model, but the revert pop glitch is probably the most notorious glitch in the whole game. It's a thing that some players spent hundreds of hours mastering, like the boost plant in Pro Skater 4 and Underground. Most of the time, pointing out glitches in games is something that takes points away. But I suck at making this happen, and it's not like it happens at random. It keeps the game fun. Something else that keeps the game fun is trying to land hippie flips. That just means doing a flip trick where the board goes under a rail and the body goes over the rail. Some players got way creative and started doing crazy shit like hippie grabs around light poles. I never really spent the time learning how to do it, but I definitely remember a lot of the badass compilation videos that came out in the wake of the hype. One of the coolest things about this game is the session marker. At any time you can put down a session marker using the left bumper, and it really does help to go back very quickly to do something. The challenges may be short, but that doesn't mean they don't take a few tries, and having to wait through the loading screen to restart every time definitely would make it more tedious than it has to be. I really appreciate this. The last gameplay thing I want to talk about is the Hall of Meat. In real life, watching Hall of Meat Bales videos can often be brutal and hard to watch for those with weaker guts. But in the EA Skate series, the Hall of Meat is the national pastime. This is the first game, so there's no trigger bale and there is no Hall of Meat game mode with challenges and whatever. Instead, just crashing into literally anything hard enough will open up the Hall of Meat prompt to show you what bones you broke and where. It's simple, elegant, and you can make a game out of it with your friends by just seeing who can break the most shit at once in different spots. Is it brainless? Yes. But this game asks the player to do a lot of thinking for a lot of things, so having this brainless bale counter pop up to break things up is great. It's a good reminder that this is a video game, and that you don't have to be so careful because you don't have the same physical limits as the real world. I know it probably sounds juvenile, but all of these years later, this dumb mechanic is still my favorite part of the game. I like the controls, but my bias still tells me that I prefer the Tony Hawk control scheme. Skate does a damn good job, and it manages to be memorable for its own unique variety of things. Still, I can't really ignore the quirks of the precursor syndrome that this game suffers from. There are collision bugs everywhere, and the physics are noticeably inconsistent after playing for a few hours. Things that should be simple can often be made frustrating by bad hitbox placement or vertex cracks. It isn't constant, but it's often enough to be annoying. Visually, this game is really good. It's almost identical to Proving Ground in fidelity and variety, but there is one argument to be made in favor of San Vanalona as the better landscape. Proving Ground is an awesome and faithful representation of a real-world place, but San Van is one of the most detailed world maps in the whole of video games. It's arguably more detailed than most real-world cities are. You can see that the map designers put a lot of serious time and effort into making sure that it was as architecturally brilliant as it could be. Every building is cohesive and nice to look at. Many of the skate spots are awesome. But then there is a massive problem with the terrain. So many of the game's best spots and most creative ideas are made a bit worse by really shitty inclines and slopes. The funny thing is that I usually love fun boxes. This game just doesn't use them with any real cohesion. Spots that definitely shouldn't have inclines are covered in them. This reminds me a lot of Thrasher Skate and Destroy. That game had a lot of areas just like this where the objects were cool and the idea was good, but the uneven terrain made it damn hard to enjoy those ideas. The soundtrack is, in traditional fashion, really good. The 45 songs in the list are a good variety of punk, rock, hip-hop, pop, and some other stuff. Like usual, there's also a good variety of obscure and mainstream mix. Albeit this game definitely leans more into the mainstream than the obscure. You get appearances from Agent Orange, Booker T and the MGs, Eric B and Rakim, and then Motorhead and Nirvana and David Bowie. This soundtrack must have been damn expensive because some of these artists are massive names. It's memorable because of that alone, but also being a good soundtrack is definitely a bonus.
I started skateboarding because of my cousin and my brother skateboarding, and then I just started getting on theirs and then progressed from there, like wanting to always ride their boards, and I'm sure they got annoyed with it. I don't know if I ever thought about what made me stick with it. It was just something that I did, you know. It was either that or make out with chicks. It's in me. I mean, maybe there'll come a time where I won't skate as much, but I always have that drive to what I want to feel, you know, just to go skate.
Finally, there is actually real-world skateboarding footage in this game from sponsored videos, and it's genuinely nice to see a post-90s EA game with movies. There are so many EA games where having real-world footage would have helped to make the game more memorable or even would have been inspiring. Skateboarding is awesome, and this game probably inspired a whole generation of skaters without having the footage at all, but the fact that it does have it there for those who want it is something that's just an added bonus to what was already a great tribute. Every time I tell myself that life is too short, I have to stop and remember remember that it isn't just my life that's short, it's everybody. Life is short for everyone I have ever met and ever will meet. So aside from just getting inspired to appreciate my own life, these videos also inspire me to appreciate the lives of the athletes and entertainers who throw down 110% every single day to do what they love. They remind me to appreciate the lives and passions of the people around me. They remind me to appreciate you guys for taking these precious minutes out of your life to listen to me ramble for a minute. I can be disagreeable, crude, full of F-bombs, and there are times where I've been outright aggressive. But you still take the time to stop and listen. So whether you like me or not, and you think I'm a Chad, or you hate me with a burning passion, and you think I'm a fuckface, I'm grateful for all of you. Time is the most valuable thing we have, so if you've spent any time on my bullshit, then thank you. With all of that out of the way, I'll go ahead and give Skate a rating of 7 out of 10. I know, I throw around 7s and 8s like candy on Halloween, but honestly, this is one case where the number really doesn't matter. Skate 1 is amazing, almost a masterpiece in a lot of ways. There's 1 point off for the insanely weird inclines all over the place, 1 point off for the variety of bugs and exploits, and 1 point off for the frustratingly poor difficulty balancing. But there is no denying how good this game is, and how much of an impact it made. 3 of the biggest modern skateboarding games right now are all built on the foundation that this game laid out 17 years ago. If that isn't revolutionary, I don't know what is. I honestly thought going in that I would come away from this with a higher rating, maybe an 8 or a 9 or something, but I can't lie to myself and ignore the obvious flaws. It didn't take long to find them, and it didn't take long for them to make the game more frustrating. But that might not bother you like it bothers me. If for whatever reason you've never played this before and you're a fan of skateboarding or board sports games or just video games in general, it is absolutely still worth playing today. It's just as good today as it was 17 years ago, and it'll be just as good in 17 more years. Now that I'm done with all of that, you already know what the next video is. The Def Jam Duo is a set that I've been wanting to cover since before the era of action sports on my channels, so to say it's long overdue is an understatement. I wrote a post talking about it already, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to kickstart an alternating video cycle that should help to keep things interesting. We'll do action sports, followed by an alternate day game, and then repeat like that for a while. That'll open the door to cover a ton of stuff I've been wanting to talk about, like the Guitar Hero series, or more of your suggestions like Darkstalkers and the Hajime no Ippo games, and even games that I said I would cover ages ago like Darkwatch and the actually good Silent Hill entries. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so until next time, thank you, and have a nice day.